Welcome back to the Power Hour, ladies and gentlemen. We're entering the second hour of the Power Hour, 8 minutes after the hour. Thank you for joining us wherever you are. You are welcome here, and thank you for inviting us into your home. Today is Pet Day because we're such animal people here at the Power Hour, I cannot tell you. And I know you are also, except for one guy out there that doesn't like when we do the animal stuff. But that's okay. You know what? It's all about learning and taking care of ourselves and being able to subsist because, you know, someday there will be no doctor, I'm afraid. Someday that may happen, and we need to know this information for ourselves. Dr. Marcie Fallek joins us today. She is a veterinarian, holistic veterinarian, which I admire this woman so much for the work that she does. Her website is holisticvet.us. She was conventionally trained. She's now dedicated to the natural, holistic, drug-free approach to the health of our animals. She incorporates a lot of the healing modalities. She also does acupuncture and homeopathy. She has got a lot of certifications and involved in a lot of organizations and associations. And she graduated from Boston College with a BA in philosophy. She graduated magna cum laude. She graduated from the University of Bologna, Italy, Doctor of Veterinary Medicine. She has been to homeopathy schools, Bach Flower School. Oh my goodness, she really knows alternative medicine. We're so thrilled to have her join us today. Thank you, Dr. Fallek, for joining us in the Power Hour.
Thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. It's like, yes, there is hope. This woman exists out there, but in New York City?
New York City and Connecticut, but I do phone consultations worldwide, actually.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. That is great to know. Phone consultations. That's not just because you don't have anybody to call and you want to call her and find out what to do about fleas. That is not what you do. Phone consultations are when you set up an appointment, and these are the real deal, and we are so grateful to have people like you. Okay, I got to know the story of what happened to get you into the alternative integrative route of medicine as opposed to being involved in the conventional veterinary medicine.
Well, I have to be honest, that was my orientation to begin with. I was a vegetarian since I was 17. My love was always for animals, and I was actually dragged kicking and screaming into becoming a veterinarian because I had an abhorrence for drugs. But my love of animals drew me to become a vet. But, you know, once you start practicing, you get consumed by the daily work, and I was giving vaccines and drugs like the best of them. But what actually made me shift gears as a professional was when my dog developed severe autoimmune disease from most likely the Lyme vaccine. And she became pretty crippled, and I did not want to give her the conventional drugs that I knew were so dangerous. So I sought out a local acupuncturist who actually is the one that first made me aware of the controversy about vaccinations. Unfortunately, the acupuncture did not help her, but I started studying homeopathy shortly afterwards, and that made miraculous changes. But it shifted my whole way of thinking about healing, and I never looked back. I took a year-long course in acupuncture, and this is, I think, in 1993. And within 2 or 3 years, I had to give up conventional medicine because I felt it was more dangerous to do that than actually nothing at all. So I wanted something totally holistic. After studying acupuncture, I sought other modalities, and I've been going full force ever since with just the holistic.
Well, you know, I think we all have our epiphany at some point that drives us either towards something or away from something. And, of course, I had my own. I was certified chemo nurse and all those kinds of things until I realized these people are all dying. Nobody's getting well. What are we doing? You know, we're saying, gee, we don't have anything for you, but if we take your heart out and give you another one, well, that'll give you another 3 years. Well, that's not the answer. And so thank goodness there are people like you. I know I could never go back. We've got a lot of physicians that listen to this program that could never go back again to conventional medicine. And it's got to be difficult because I'm sure you don't have a whole lot of your peers in your area to communicate with.
And there's actually, shockingly, only I think about 150 of us with classical homeopathy, which are really the purists in this country that practice only holistic. I'm also part of an organization I'm a national representative for America, for the international community. So I'm part of the English and European and worldwide community. And there are only several hundred of us in the world. I mean, unfortunately, I think many particularly American veterinarians, are brainwashed, so they believe that this is hocus pocus, or they want to believe that. And actually, the economics, what we earn as holistic vets is just a fraction of what the regular vets earn. So there's a whole mercenary aspect to this as well.
Well, like you're a member of so many organizations, American Veterinary Medical Association, conventional, Connecticut Veterinary Medical Association. These are conventional.
Right.
But then also the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association, Academy of Veterinary Homeopathy, which we don't even, many of us don't even know exists. The British Association of Homeopathic Veterinary Surgeons, which this is incredible. It's good to know that it's out there, but I'm sure your conventions don't exactly take up a whole entire hotel yet, do they?
My conventions?
The convention, when you go to convention with these people.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, there could be about 90 or 100 at the most at each time. But it's a struggle. You do have to battle your colleagues. It's very difficult for me to find colleagues that are open. I personally only do holistic at this point, and I do need to refer some of my clients to conventional vets if they need to be spayed or have some kind of surgery. I'm very, very hard-pressed to find any open-minded veterinarians. It's very difficult, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I take in a lot of animals that have been dropped off or whatever, and I've rescued a lot of animals, and my biggest problem is getting somebody to spay them without requiring vaccines. I mean, I feel like I've really come a long ways when I can do that.
I mean, unfortunately, the pharmaceutical companies and the pet food companies really fund the veterinary schools here. So they have brainwashed the veterinarians from the beginning.
Now, I notice you're a big promoter of raw food for animals, and that's something we want to get into because food and vaccines, I think on this first visit with you are about all we could cover because there's so much information. I mean, everybody has been so excited about you being on this show. They've all got their questions ready for you, and so do I.
I'll tell you about my epiphany about raw food. I mean, I was trained with all the conventional vets to recommend science diet and to believe that it was well-balanced and nutritious. I had been a vegetarian, as I had said, for many years. And so just the thought of raw meat really made me cringe. But I had a Shar-Pei come to me. I just started studying acupuncture, and the Shar-Pei came to me, and it was on all kinds of drugs, thyroid supplementation, antibiotics, steroids, and its coat was a total disaster. And she said, I'm at my wit's end. I just need some help. I don't know where to go with this. I said, listen, I just learned about the raw food diet. I know nothing, not really much about it. She said, I'll try anything. I'm desperate. And I wish I had taken a before and after picture. At any rate, I told her about the diet. I printed it out for her. She came back and paid for a visit 6 weeks later just to show me that the dog's coat was like velvet. It was gorgeous. That totally shifted me. Basically, animals were made to eat prey. I mean, especially dogs and cats. Prey and various vegetables and fruit. They were not made to eat processed, cooked food, and that's putting it lightly.
Yeah.
And what goes into dog and cat food is really abominable. But what's amazing is I'll see an animal and I'll tell them about the raw diet, and let's say they have 6 or 8 other cats, they'll put them all on the raw diet. They'll say their coats are beautiful, they have more energy, they're acting like kittens again, they don't smell the way they used to. So it's an incredible shift that happens in the animal's health when they're put on what nature intends them to do, to have.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of people say, you don't see a dog out in the wild putting his food in a microwave.
Exactly. I mean, one of the examples that I use for clients is like we're so used to thinking of the lions and the tigers and the wolves eating raw, animals, rabbits and this and that. And that's what they used to feed them in the zoos. Now they're feeding them things like eukanuba. And just think, wow, how can a lion be healthy eating eukanuba? So it's the same thing with our domesticated animals. They were not none of us were programmed to eat commercial foods, actually. So raw food is the best. I will say that I will tailor the diet to the individual animal and to the owner. If I have a person that has a couple of Rottweilers, let's say, and that lives in Manhattan, and they don't have the freezer space or they don't have the money because it can run into more money than commercial foods, we'll talk about making a partial diet of raw and some really good commercial human-grade foods, or adding some raw meat or adding some cooked food, even real food, to their diet. So, you really need to look at the whole situation. Some animals have such compromised digestive tracts that initially they won't be able to tolerate the raw diet, although some of them just do so much better. Like I have 2 dogs. One of them, she does so much better on the raw, and the other one, it took her a while to adjust to it. So you really should speak to or see a holistic vet if you want to think about shifting the diet of your dog or cat.
You know, we had Ann Miller on who wrote the book Food Pets Die For, and that pretty well was an epiphany for me. Yeah. But I will also say that one of the fun things, and I tell my listeners this a lot, is that I do at least twice a week do the raw food, and I'm trying to integrate it in and learn more about it, which I'm looking forward to you sharing with us so we can learn more. But here's what I found out. I've got a lot of cats. I mean, they all are well taken care of, and they're all neutered, and they're all in my utility room when it's cold, and they got a cat door to go in and out. But I've got a lot of cats. And I must say that the dead birds in our yard were a big problem, or them eating the dead birds was a huge problem. Since I have put them on raw food twice a week, I have no dead birds. They don't chase birds. And that has been such a rewarding thing. I mean, not that I got weird cats.
Actually, birds and mice are their appropriate diet. And I do have a client. She's always the cutting edge, and she is now feeding. I could not believe this, but this is really what they're supposed to eat. I have a client that has several cats, and they're in their 20s now, and she feeds them mice and birds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they were meant to eat. That's right.
That's what they were meant to eat, yeah.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, they sure love a chicken breast when I put it outside. They all go for it. Holisticvet.us. It'll be linked at the Power Hour news section, and it'll be linked at the Power Hour website and on the email blast. You can see a clip from her from television, and her last name is spelled Fallek, if you want to look her up, Dr. Marcie Fallek. I wish you would go to her testimonial section. Oh, my goodness. It is so encouraging to see these healthy animals and read those stories. I think you'll love it at holisticvet.us. If I were to ask you, Dr. Fallek, what is, if you were to tell me one of the worst stories about dog food, without mentioning the names, we all know the grocery store names of dog food, and we all know the veterinary office names of dog food and cat food. But tell us, unfortunately, we need to be shocked, I think, to change from what we're doing. Talk to me about how bad that food can be without naming the names.
Okay. Well, first of all, what is put into dog food, which is not human grade, is what's basically prohibited for human consumption, banned from human consumption. And what's allowed to go into that is what's called the 4 Ds, number 1, which is dead, diseased, and dying animals. Disabled, dead, diseased, and dying animals. So that means actually that animals that are found dead in the yard, roadkill, animals that have cancer, that are dying from it, are perfectly legal to put in dog food. There's something called meat digest, which is basically unspecified parts from unspecified animals. And that can include dead dogs and cats with a euthanasia solution in them taken from the shelter. Can include the raccoons and all the animals on the side of the road that have been rotting in the sun. This is just the meat part of it. Then there's the preservatives, something called ethoxyquin, which has been banned as a preservative for humans because it's carcinogenic. It's used to stabilize rubber in the manufacture of tires, and there have been studies with this one particular preservative, one of many, where it's caused liver failure and cancer and many other ills in people. You want to stay away from anything that says, it doesn't say, but it says like poultry byproducts. First of all, byproducts means it's anything other than the flesh. So that includes the intestines with the feces in it, includes the feet, the feathers or the hair. It's basically anything that we wouldn't even want to look at or touch.
Okay, so what we need to know is what to stay away from. Now, the first thing is poultry byproducts.
Well, anything that doesn't, if you want to have something that says single source protein, so it says chicken, meat, beef, or chicken or lamb, anything that says meat meal or digest or byproducts, you definitely don't want to touch.
Okay.
Anything that says meal is something that's been rendered. It's not fresh meat. What it is they put anything that they want to, depending on what the label is, into a vat and they boil it for hours. And any enzymes or any nutrients are totally destroyed in this process. So you want to try to stay away from meal as well. You want to stay away from anything you can't pronounce. That's what I tell my clients. So all these weird names, BHT, BHA, all these things, which I don't remember right now what they stand for, but these are all chemical preservatives and additives that enhance palatability, shelf life, and they're just bad and carcinogenic.
Okay, then
stay away from that.
Okay, then let me ask you this. You go to the grocery store, the average person is going to go to China Central. Well,
Yeah, that's
China.
another. Yeah.
Okay, they're going to go to China Central, and they're going to buy some off-the-shelf dog food they've seen advertised on television because they say it's good. All right, what are they actually giving? They're giving a dead food that has no nutrition basically to it. What is it, just calories? Is it got all the nutrition of air conditioning filters in that dog food or cat food?
I mean, they're supposed to be labeled that they have a certain amount of fat and protein and carbohydrates, but you want to see what the source of that is. So when it says something like, beef tallow, that's something like what you put in the candles. So it does, there's a minimum vitamin requirement and all of this that the FDA requires, but it's the source that's important. You bring up a very important point. You do want to stay away from anything that is made in China, if we can help it. We have the menu food recall that happens a few years
and that's
back.
hard to know what was made in China. Let me just ask again. Now, if you are in a tight bind, do you go to the grocery store and purchase, or drugstore or wherever, and purchase any food there for your animals, Dr. Fallek?
Well, actually, going to the supermarket is probably not the best place to purchase your dog food. Most of the foods there, although the quality is improving recently, is not up to par. So finding a better pet store is a more appropriate place to find food.
Okay.
What you want to do is read labels just like you should for yourself. You want to recognize the ingredients that are there. You want to see meat, a specific type of meat like beef, lamb, chicken, turkey, something like that as the first ingredient. You don't want to see corn or soy or poultry byproducts or anything of that ilk written on the label. You want to avoid any kind of preservatives, artificial preservatives, colorings, propylene glycol, anything that you wouldn't want to put in your own body or your child's body. You want to avoid for your pet as well.
And we need to quit saying, well, they're just animals. They're just dogs. They're just a cat.
For all us animal lovers, we know that's not truly a part of the family. They're our best friends a lot of the time.
That's right. And it's going to save you money in the long run by feeding them well so you don't have those horrendous vet bills.
Absolutely. I tell clients at the first visit, I would much rather you pay money for a better food for your pet than to spend your money on me later on in life. Yeah.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. All right, back to the food again. So now what about if it's labeled organic? Is that a good thing?
Well, that is a good thing, but you have to really, I wanted to mention, too, my client friend has a website. It's caninecare.org, and she has researched a lot into the companies about if they're made in China or not.
Great.
caninecare.org. So if it's organic, but it's sourced, things could be sourced in China, but actually put together here, and it's written made in the USA. You want to find out from the company where it's sourced. So what China considers organic and we consider organic are probably two very different things. But yes, USDA certified organic is a very good thing to find.
Okay, now how do you do that website again? Do you write it out? Is it numbers?
Yeah, I would www.caninecare.org.
So it's the letter K, number 9.
No, CANINE, like dog, canine.
Okay.
Care, CARE, .org.
Oh, excellent. Okay.
Yeah, so she has researched most of the foods written, which she personally is not into the raw diet, but as I say, that's fine. Not everybody has to do that. But she has done a lot of work about all these things, vaccines, drugs. She's up to date on FDA recalls. It's considered one of the best websites on the net right now in terms of holistic care for your pet.
And there are several websites
into which foods are made human grade, which are sourced in China, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, and also at holisticvet.us, you'll see all those links. You can go to the links section and see caninecare.org.
Yeah.
All right, now let's move. What about one other thing? What about grain-free dog and cat food?
Yeah, I mean, basically, cats particularly, but also dogs were not made to eat grains. I mean, they don't cook in the wild, the wolves and the foxes, so it's not a really appropriate food for animals. So having the grain-free foods are best, with some exceptions. If you have an elderly dog or cat has kidney disease or liver disease, you don't want a particularly high protein diet. So in that case, I do like to cut the protein with some carbohydrates. So you do want to see a whole grain such as brown rice or barley or something like that, and not like white rice or some of these other carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates that you find in a lot of the commercial foods. You don't want soy, you don't want corn. But it is always best to try to find a holistic veterinarian to consult for the particular needs of your animal.
Okay. Now, give us an idea, if you can, real quickly, and we do encourage holistic vets in your area, or you can you can email Dr. Fallek, and she does consults. Now, remember, you need to sign up and you need to plan for a consult, and we'll give you that phone number in just a second, that email address in just a second, so that you can perhaps do a consult if you have a real concern, specific concern with your animals. But let's go to let's say you were going to give us an idea of some food that you've made for your dogs. If you
okay. The basis of it is meat, and I, as I say, recommend the raw meat if possible. So I would get from the supermarket organic chopped meat. I sometimes have a leg of lamb, have the butcher grind it up for me. I used to try to debone raw chicken, which was quite a feat. So I would get raw chicken breast, and I put that through the food processor. I use organic vegetables, either very lightly steamed or raw, and put them through the blender or the food processor. It's very, very important to add a calcium supplementation. What we're trying to do with a holistic diet is to approximate what animals eat in nature. So let's say a dog or a cat. We talked about the cats eating birds and mice. But basically, let's say if you have a dog or a fox or a wolf, which is basically the same thing, they'll kill, let's say, a rabbit. And the first thing that they eat are the innards of the stomach contents, which is the grasses. So we do need some vegetables in the food, and it's basically pre-chopped. Dogs don't have the ability to digest cellulose, so we have to break that down for them in the food processor. So we use some raw organic vegetables or very lightly steamed. Then we use the meat, as I said. They eat the bones. It's very, very important. And there's no calcium in flesh, so we have to have a calcium supplementation. It is very difficult to get organic bone meal. If you could find it, that's wonderful. Otherwise, there are other options. I sell a product, which is basically a calcium lactate product, which is organic. You can toast eggshells and grind them up really fine also, but that's really important. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the biggest error that a lot of homemade diet clients do. They don't add the calcium. You need some kind of fat source, so adding a good quality oil such as flaxseed or extra virgin olive oil is important also. You do need to add some vitamin minerals. So when your regular vet says it's not healthy to eat, scraps, they are correct in a sense. I mean, I tell people you can't eat Chinese food and just scrape the remains into your dog's food bowl. You really have to carefully plan what your dog should eat. But it's really important also to have variety. Just like we don't know what's exactly perfect for us, we don't know exactly what's perfect for an animal. So, using the basic food groups, which is the vegetables, the meats, the vitamins, minerals, and in some cases, let's say grains, and having variety is the key to having a healthy pet with a good homemade diet.
That is really good to know. Now, this issue of moving to vaccines is huge. And, of course, I was vaccine injured as a result of what I did in the military. But, military dogs are vaccinated. If you have an animal in the military, your dog is vaccinated regardless. And that's sad. And I watch the animals get vaccinated routinely, which is the big source of money from a veterinarian's office, obviously. But you don't vaccinate. Is that correct?
Well, that's not true. I personally, at this point in my career, which is 20 years into being holistic, I do the minimal vaccines for the worst diseases that are necessary to protect the animal. So what I have done for my own pet is to give them, I never do a multivalent vaccine, so I don't use the DHPP, which all these things mixed together causes all kinds of terrible problems. I just give the parvo component and the distemper component separate from each other one time when the dogs are 4 months old, and that will protect them for the rest of their lives.
Really? So you think parvo is important?
Well, there is a risk. That is a life-threatening disease.
Mm-hmm.
There is a good chance with holistic care and even sometimes with conventional care that you can cure the dog. So in my opinion, it's risk versus, protection. What's the advantage? To weigh it carefully.
Okay.
Right now, what I just learned, which is really horrifying me, the vaccine manufacturers are not making the monovalent vaccines what I use anymore.
Oh, no.
And so I am possibly rethinking doing any vaccines at all.
Okay.
You do have to do the rabies as required by law. That doesn't mean, basically 1 or 2 vaccines, the max at 1 year old is protected for life. You don't have to do more than that. So basically, for me, the worst thing that we're doing for the dogs is not vaccinating them once, but vaccinating them repeatedly, over and over again. We do not go for yearly vaccines. We don't get a polio shot every year. We don't do a DPT shot every year. So the problem is there's no liability with animals, and like you say, the pharmaceutical companies and the veterinarians are making a fortune doing these vaccines every single year when they're not necessary. Every vaccine is fraught with danger. In fact, one of my dogs did develop seizures and paralysis from the one vaccine. So it's never a benign thing. But I have spent a lot of time in India, for example, and I've seen animals have rabies and distemper and die terrible deaths. So there are some advantages to doing minimal vaccines to prevent the acute disease. But a vaccine is not a benign thing. It is always with risks. And so I think it's very important for owners of their pets to make informed decisions about what they feel comfortable with.
Okay, very good.
I want to give information so they can make their choice with information rather than based on fear.
At the website at holisticvet.us. You can see information on vaccines there. One question off air before we go to the callers, and that is, this is a problem with male outdoor cats a lot, bloody urine or UTIs. This person has tried colloidal silver. It doesn't seem to be working anymore. Any ideas on that?
Absolutely. I would say virtually all cystitises that I've seen are emotionally based.
Really?
Yeah, it's a stress thing. So even as a conventional vet, when I work with conventional vets in a regular hospital, we would laugh. I mean, the animals would come in, not in a funny way, but we'd see these animals that are in the hospital and they get cystitis. And we knew it's basically stress-related. 90% of them have no bacteria in them at all. Things like colloidal silver, herbs and various supplements don't really cure the problem. They palliate. They temporarily band-aid the situation. So I've virtually 100% success with cystitis working homeopathically. Acupuncture can help as well. So really the energy modalities are much deeper acting than supplements. So that's why I specialize in homeopathy.
Okay, let me go to Doug in Utah. I think it's your phone. Hi, Doug. How you doing?
Good. The doctors answered a lot of questions that I would have asked. She's really covered a lot of territory.
Isn't she great?
Yeah, she's great. You are. Anyway, I have vaccinated or had vaccinated my 2 kitties that I've got in the house, and they had the rabies shot. Anyway, being that they're inside cats, is that a necessity?
Does that change things from the immunization standpoint? Okay, thank you very much for the call, Doug. And does that make any difference if they're inside animals?
Well, first of all, 1 or 2 vaccines, including the rabies, protect them for life, whether they're indoors or outdoors. So, and there is no licensing for cats as of yet, thank goodness. So I gave my cats one rabies shot, and actually, unfortunately, one of my cats got loose for about a month, and thank goodness I found her. And I had no fear at all about her contracting rabies. I'm totally confident that she was protected.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's go to Annie in Indiana. Annie, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with Dr. Marcie.
Good morning, ladies. I was disconnected.
Okay. Hi. Sorry about that.
I tuned in late, and you may have already covered this, so excuse me if you have. But I need a remedy for tapeworm, and I wanted to ask you, there seems like there's a lot of confusion about the food-grade diatomaceous earth, the fossil shell flower that Joyce has the power hour. He has the food grade. I've heard that humans need to take it on an empty stomach, and I've read that dogs also need to do that because if there's any food in the stomach, it'll work on that and not the tapeworm. And then
okay, let me go to the tapeworm issue first. My animals get tapeworms all the time. They're dragging home all kinds of animals out here in the country and eating them. Dr. Marcie, what about tapeworms?
Okay, well, tapeworms is one of the few worms that I'm able to treat holistically, so I'm really happy about that.
Oh, wow.
And tapeworms are from fleas, obviously, so if your animal's eating outside and eating or getting into dead animals, they can ingest the flea and therefore get the tapeworm. Personally, I use a certain enzyme, a product that breaks down the tapeworm. I've never used diatomaceous earth, but that may be appropriate just as well as the enzyme that I use. But yes, you want to try to have it on an empty stomach as much as possible. I'm going to have the people put my enzyme in a little bit of food.
Now, is this something that we could do a phone conference with you on and then perhaps get it sent to us, the enzyme, Dr. Fallek?
That would be a simple thing to do, sure.
Okay. All right. And why don't you give your email address, if you don't mind?
It's my name, Marcie Fallek, MARCIE, F as in Frank, ALLEK, at earthlink.net.
Now, these are for consults. This is not just to call her because she doesn't have time, unfortunately, to call and talk with 100 of our listeners every day. So, listeners, be understanding this is a paid conference call, or a consult, just like you would do with a doctor. So, let's be respectful of that. I know you guys will on the tapeworm issue. Let's go to Tiffany in Kansas. Tiffany, you're on the air with Dr. Marcie. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Joyce.
Morning.
My question for her is, we've heard, I don't know if it's an old wives' tale, but if you feed your dogs or cats raw meat, that they will revert back to their wild ancestry. Have you heard anything like that?
No, that is an old wives' tale. No, I've been doing this now for 20 years, and I have not seen anybody revert to their wild state, so no.
Okay.
Excellent.
That's what we thought. Thank you, Joyce. And our family came to visit you back in October. I don't remember if you remember us or not. I had 4 children, raised them.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we've been trying to call in and say hello and thank you, but we just haven't ever been able to get through.
Hey, call the Power Hour and leave your number there. Would you mind, Tiffany?
Yeah,
I
no
remember
problem.
you guys. Gorgeous children you have. Wow, thank you so much. And she homeschools, and she's got 4, and one of them was like 2 weeks old, and she was here for a shooting course to learn how to shoot a gun, of all things. That was neat. Bob in Utah, you're on the air. Go ahead. Or Bob in Vermont, you're on the air with Dr. Marcie. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, Doctor, you got any good diets for macaws?
You know what? Unfortunately, I really don't work with birds, so I can. If you email me, I can send you a link email to one of my colleagues that does.
Oh, that would be nice of you. Thank you so much, Dr. Marcie, for doing that. Thank you, Bob in Vermont. Let's go to Ralph in Michigan. Ralph, you're on the air. Now, don't tell me you want her to do something with your turkeys.
Well, no, but what it is we got this stuff for our guineas and our turkeys. It's 100% natural. It controls worms and stuff like that, where you don't have to throw away the eggs and stuff like that. But it's all natural. It's got flaxseed in it, and it's got
what's your question?
And all that. Well, we also take care of these feral cats. Okay, and I was thinking, I told my wife, I said, well, you know what? It's got that diatomaceous earth in it, and it's got the flaxseed in it, and all that. I said, well, if it doesn't hurt the birds, I said, why don't you put some of that in the cat food? Because they're always out eating mice and stuff like that, too. And, my wife's always complaining, well, every once in a while she'll find a worm. And she starts feeding them down there. I said, well, you put some of this in there. And she was saying, no, that's for poultry. No.
Okay, now, I'm confused. What are you saying here? Do you have a question?
Is it okay to give it to the cats, too?
Yeah, as I said, I personally haven't used diatomaceous earth too much. I'm more familiar with it in, killing fleas in the environment, but you can give it orally as well.
Now, remember, let me just add, the fossil shell flour is food grade, and it's changed so it does not work for fleas externally. That is what I give to my cats and dogs, and they take it internally. I've been putting it with their food, but
you can use it in the environment also to kill the flea larvae and the eggs in the environment.
Yes. All right. Thank you very much, Ralph in Michigan. Let's go to Joe in Michigan. Joe, you're on the air. Go ahead. Joe in West Virginia, you're on the air with Dr. Marcie. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Joyce and Dr. Fallek. I have two Great Pyrenees pups. They're 6 months old. I've turned them into the pasture with the animals, and just being ignorant of the whole vaccine issue on animals, at 2 months old, I gave the pups 7-way shot. You're supposed to follow up with a second dose, in which I did not do.
Right.
And then I heard you earlier say how important the distemper and parvo factor is in those vaccines. Unfortunately, you can't buy those separately, so I was kind of lost on what to do there.
Well, you know what? Actually, I just found out, I've got to research this, there is supposedly a one distemper parvo combination without the other 5 dangerous and unnecessary components. Do your dogs, in the meantime, have any contact with any other dogs?
They are isolated with the cattle and the goats, and they stay in the fence line, and they're coming up on a year old in a few months, and I was wondering about the rabies vaccine as well.
Yeah,
unfortunately, I had to... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. I mean, do you have is rabies endemic in your area? Do you have rabid wildlife?
It seems to be sporadic. Once in a while in the media you'll hear that it's prevalent, and then other times
I am concerned about that, as I said before. I'm not totally against vaccinations. I want just enough to protect them and not more than enough. So if your animals, your dogs are outside and in the pasture like that, and there's a possibility of them encountering a rabid animal, it is fatal most of the times, and it is transmittable to people, and it could be fatal for you too. So I definitely would do the rabies. Now, in terms of the parvo, first of all, if they have no other contact with other dogs and cats, the risk is very minimal, except if you find yourself at the veterinary hospital. That's the irony here. That's really where they're going to come in contact with those other sick animals. Parvo is a disease of growing young dogs. So it's virtually impossible for a dog over a year and a half old to get parvo. So you're almost, there in terms of protection for your dogs against parvo. Distemper is rare. Most often you find it in shelters. It is potentially a life-threatening disease, but your dogs, again, are at very little risk unless they find themselves at the hospital where there is a sick dog with distemper, and it is transmitted via aerosol, meaning if the dog next door to it in the cage sneezes, your dog can pick it up. Do you know if your puppies had any adverse reactions to the vaccines the first time?
Well, that brings my next question. We have one that is having chronic ear problems and never had that until I vaccinated them, and the other one is not showing any sign.
Exactly. That is the most common side effect that I see from vaccinations.
Really?
Yeah, and I see healthy puppies, and then 2 weeks later they'll have an ear infection. Basically, the ear infection, the discharge is the way the body's trying to release toxins. But that's a very minor side effect. Your risks are really, really minimal except for rabies. So I would feel pretty confident just telling you to do the rabies shot once or possibly twice. I mean, unfortunately, it is required by law, and we have to try to change the laws. I don't know about the licensing procedure in whatever state you're in, but I can't do other than say you have to follow the law.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that good phone call from you, Joe. Let's go to Frank in Ohio. Frank, you're on the air with Dr. Marcie. Go ahead, please.
I do have a question, but I just thought I'd throw some feedback. I believe in distemper, too, because especially, they get distemper also if they're quarantined in a space with heat problems. And so you have Great Pyrenees, and if they have heat problems and that brain cooks a little bit, they can get the distemper, from my understanding and knowledge.
Okay, we need to get your question.
Okay, let me, because this concerns, do you have a good general detox for a few different issues.
She said she's leaving for India in January, and then she will be on the show after she comes back from India the middle of January, and she has this new book coming out, so we're really excited about that. And all this information will be in the email blast that you will receive today. So let me go to Frank in Ohio. Frank, you had a question that we want to get to your final question, your final caller for Dr. Fallek.
Sure. Real quick, Dr. Marcie, I just wondered, and I'm encouraging people to go to your website. Oh, by the way, you're such a blessing, Joyce, and you and your staff and listeners. What a blessing you are to us.
Thank you.
But I hope you have, Dr. Marcie, on your website, ways, natural, safe ways to detox dogs or cats from different lead poisoning, heavy metal poisoning, et cetera, and a real quick shot to the people with the cats with urinary bleeding infection. That's an infection, urinary tract infection, and it could lead to blockage and kill your cat. So if your cat's bleeding, get it to a vet or get some antibiotics, get some serious veterinary help, whether homeopathic or not.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Let me go to the detox, ways to detox metal.
Actually, I don't work with herbal detoxes, but that's certainly something I could look into for your listeners. Since I work homeopathically, which is at an energetic level, there are many different homeopathic remedies that energetically detoxify the animal, but that's on an individual basis. There's no, generic one. So if your animal is poisoned, certain remedies like Nux vomica or Seneca album will, on a very deep level, clear the body of poisons. But I in terms of herbally, I don't work with that kind of stuff at this point.
What do you find is the one thing that people come to your office most for?
Oh, well, that's a really good question. Unfortunately, I'd say 75% of people come to me at the 11th hour. Their animals are dying. Cancer, kidney disease, and it's so important to start them off right because all the problems, it all starts in the beginning with all the things that we've been talking about today, which is vaccines, food, and drugs. So people come to me at the last stages of disease, and that is not the best time to come to me.
Yeah.
However, a lot of my initial consult is spent on educating and talking about the things we're talking about here so they don't get into the predicament with the next dog.
Well, I would encourage everybody to go to your website. We'll have you back on, and we'll start with a Holistic Vet 101 with our listeners also the next time we have you on and cover a lot of these issues because I know they're just hungry for the information that you have. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. We look forward to you being back on again. Have a very blessed and safe trip at whatever you're doing in India, and we will look forward to hearing from you in January.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Marcie. Dr. Marcie Fallek, and it is holisticvet.us, holisticvet.us. What a wonderful person to have on the Power Hour for our doggies and kitties.